I was living my life for everyone in the world but me. And the irony of that is, if you're living for other people, you're never going to serve other people. You're never going to be the person that you want to be for them. I changed my language. I used to say, I have to get up tomorrow at 4 and run. And then it got to be, I get to get up tomorrow at 4 and run because I saw it in pursuit of my goal.
Meet Fareed. He's sprawled on the couch, his thumb flicking up on his phone, reading about injury reports, lineup speculations, fantasy football sleepers for a season that doesn't even matter to him that much. And underneath it all, a familiar feeling in his gut.
What am I doing?
He's not even saying these thoughts out loud. They just linger in his mind.
Man, I feel so lazy right now.
Fareed is married with 2 young kids and works as a data manager for an energy company. And a year ago, he was different. He was getting up early, he was working out, he was taking side gigs for his web design business. He was really building something. And now he's 30 pounds overweight, and he can't feel excited about anything. Even when his wife tries to connect, he feels checked out.
Are you okay, honey?
Yeah, I'm fine.
He's not. And he blames himself for it. A lack of discipline, a lack of follow-through. He goes into this cycle of starting really strong, then falling apart. He's stuck in the same loop. He's spending hours looking at sports news rather than working on his life. And it feels like his real life is just drifting further away from him. And he's starting to wonder if something deeper is broken. Today, I'm speaking with Dr. Bobby Shelton, executive self-leadership coach, author, and host of the Self-Leadership Lab. Bobby helps high performers rebuild their inner game with clarity, discipline, strength, and peace, so they stop performing on the outside while falling apart within. And I'm eager to hear how Bobby would help someone like Fareed to stop losing the battle within and start becoming the person he knows he can still be. My name is Jay Abbasi, and welcome to Unstuck. Real people, real stories, real solutions. While the details are changed to protect anonymity, what you just heard is based on a true story of challenges that come up in the real world. And we discuss how to navigate these environments with practical tips to help you get unstuck and build a more fulfilling, impactful, and balanced life and career. So Bobby, when we met a few weeks ago now, you were telling me about your own personal transformation of what you went through physically. You went through a major transformation. Tell me that story. I want to hear how you made such a major change in your life.
Yeah, well, 6 years ago, I weighed 354 pounds. And I ended up in that journey, I lost 180, gained some of it back because that was like too much. Now I'm 6'5", so you're thinking 354 or whatever. But yeah, but I tell you what, that story started kind of, before that. A few weeks prior to that, my wife, one day, I overreacted to a traffic incident. We all do that when we're driving around. And she said, you're the angriest person I know. And it was kind of an offhanded comment, but I'm so glad she said that because it put me down on a course where I realized I was the angriest person I knew. And then we get to the weight loss thing. I had already decided to make a change in my life. And I'm in a doctor's office, had an umbilical hernia, stand on the scale, boom, 354. Now, I was in the Army, I was slender, so it was kind of like an eye-opening. And it was like, man, how did I get to this place? And what do I need to get better? So immediately I was like, I got to fix, Bobby. I got to lose weight That'll make me like myself. That'll make me less angry. So it was funny. I jumped in the truck and David Goggins, are you familiar with him? Former Navy SEAL? Yeah. So that podcast was on. Joe Rogan, I think, was interviewing him. And I didn't dial it up. Never heard of David Goggins, never even thought about him. And I heard his story. And, he has a very similar story to get a SEALs. I think he had to lose like 80 pounds in a month, something really crazy. And that inspired me. And I said, I can be that guy. I can be David Goggins. So like that day, I went for a run. Even though I had this hernia, the doctor's like, don't do anything until we fix you. But then I went to go see another hernia doctor, and he's like, well, we can't even cut you until you lose like 80 pounds. Because it was like, the chance of success was so great. So I hope that kind of answers your question. But yeah, I went on this journey more to find myself. While it was a weight loss journey at first, I learned that wasn't cutting it. That didn't cut to the core of who I was. And then a lot more changes stem from that over the last, 5 years.
And looking back on that, Bobby, what would you say you were angry about? You said you were the angriest person you knew. What were you angry about?
I think it boiled down to I was angry because I had lost my identity. I had sold myself out to what I thought others wanted, success, all the things we talk about all the time. You got the job title, the bank account, the next degree, the next certification. I was living my life for everyone in the world but me. And the irony of that is, if you're living for other people, you're never going to serve other people. You're never going to be the person that you want to be for them. So it's this constant do loop in your head, right? Like, yeah, on paper, I look great. I might go into a boardroom and I'm respected. But if you don't respect yourself, I think that was the core of my anger. I found that I didn't like myself. I certainly didn't love myself. And that's a terrible place to be in. But it's so easy to do, especially in today's culture, right? Everything is shiny. And then we got this social media culture. We've got whatever you dedicate your life to. And it could be something, like a sport or fitness even, right? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who push their fitness to a level where they don't like themselves because that's not who they want to be. And getting to that core is, I think, why I personally was so angry. And boy, am I so glad she told me that day, because even though it took me a few years to get there, I'm here today and I'm a new person. I often say that was Bobby 1.0, and today we're at Bobby 2.0, and we're evolving to Bobby 3.0 as we go, because that's the cool thing. Once you find what you want to be doing, it's a lifelong journey of just joy and curiosity. You and I were both talking how much we want to learn and how much we want to, we're curious about every single person we meet. Well, that was me. Prior to that, I had opinions. I had dogma. I always had to be right. And that generated anger. And I know it's a strange way to look at anger, because most times anger is striking out at people. But what about the internal anger? What about us striking out against ourselves all the time?
Yeah, it's the way of comparing the difference between curiosity and judgment. I mean, if you think about what you were saying a moment ago, the opinions that you'd have and the dogma, it would then lead to a judgment of others, society, of self, not liking self. And it seems like what you came to the realization of is, I got to shift out of judgment and more into curiosity.
Yeah, 100%. And that was the first question that I had to ask myself is, why are you so angry? And there were a lot of answers that I gave myself. It's that accountability mirror. You got to stand in front of yourself and really look into your core. But to do that, you do got to take away judgment, because really, I don't think you're ever judging anyone else. You're judging the inadequacies that you have about yourself. So if you see your neighbor driving a car that you want, you don't say to your neighbor, "Hey man, great car. I'm so happy for you. Enjoy it." You say, "Why don't I have that car? Why am I not good enough to have that car?" And that, looking back, that's exactly the way I was living. Even though there were probably other people who were like looking at me and saying, "Well, why don't I do what Bobby's doing?" And that's where like success is such a ambiguous term. But once you define success for yourself, I mean, I don't know. I could ask you the question, what's success for you? But success for me now is, I've got a roof over my head, food for me, my family. I get to take care of my animals. That's a good day. I mean, how much more do you need other than that when you really think about it? And then it allows yourself that curiosity, right? If you've got all your needs, you've probably heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whatever. And that's all great. And that probably proves true. But what are your needs? How do you get to that, fulfillment, that attainment? What do they call it? I can't remember the top of the pyramid.
Self-actualization.
Self-actualization, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how about if we started self-actualizing like what we have today? Like, do you ever read Stoic philosophy at all? Are you into that? So the Stoics say, be happy with what you have today, and then play scenarios in your mind. What if you lose it all? Well, think about if you simplify that down to just food, shelter, water, love, protection. Really, what do we need to worry about? So why compare ourselves to anyone else? Because we probably already have everything we need. And that was a lesson that I needed to learn. And I know it's a hard lesson and it kind of sounds woo-woo as we're talking about it. But at the end of the day, like if you can wake up every day happy with where you're at, be happy with where your feet are planted right now, that doesn't mean you don't have goals and destinations, right? But I can't remember where you're at, New York, somewhere like that. I'm in Virginia. So if I want to get to you, like it's going to take some time. But if I'm always thinking about, man, I'm not with Jay right now, we're not hanging out in person, like that puts like pressure. And I compare everything to what my ideal of being with Jay is versus where I am right now. What are the conversations? What are the beautiful things that I get to see in nature or just good thoughts I have along the way? And that for me was where I really started becoming curious. Be curious where you're at right now. I don't care if you're in the grocery store, in the line waiting to pick your kids up from school. There are things going around you all the time that'll completely amaze you and take away all the judgment, all the, insecurity that we place on ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you brought in the perspective of it doesn't mean you don't have goals. It doesn't mean that you don't get after it. Just because, I can imagine listeners thinking, well, if I'm just going to be happy with what I have, then I'm going to be stagnant. I'm going to resign. I'm not going to pursue big things. And I know our listeners, they're high performers. They're people who want to achieve. And so I'm so glad that you brought that in because it's not so binary. Like that our minds go into binary thinking, right, Bobby? It's like either I'm this Zen woo-woo person who just is happy with everything and then therefore I don't challenge myself, or I'm this go, go, go ambitious person and I'm unhappy in the moment. What I'm hearing you say, and I agree with you, is there's a way to blend those two. You can be ambitious and have goals while still being able to be present and happy and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, 100%. And when you're happy with what you've got, the goals that you set are probably more obtainable because they're goals that you set for yourself. And
Right.
That's my kind of whole theory is that once you find the work that matters to you, and I can't tell you what it is, it's going to be different for every single person. You're going to be more inclined to get there aggressively. And trust me, I perform all the time and I'm always got goals. I've got aspirations that I want. But at the end of the day, I don't set my identity on those aspirations. And I think that's the big difference. So often we see something in a magazine or on social media and we're saying, this is what I want for my life without taking time to sit down and say, is this truly what I want? Does this meet my moral standards, my ethical standards, my spiritual standards, whatever? You've got physical standards, for example. I mean, how many people get to the top job but lose their health? Like, is that the goal you want to go after? Because you probably can do both. And that's my whole point is like doing it for the right reason is probably more important than gaining whatever that thing is.
And you brought up the word identity a few times, and I'm curious to learn more about your perspective on identity. So I think that so often people are investing their identity in an outcome, right? In something specific. And I'm hearing from you, you have a bit of a different take on it. So what does one need to do to really establish a healthy identity?
I think, and I'm so glad you asked that because it's been weighing on my mind lately. I think your identity are the standards that you set. And again, you can break it down into any buckets you want. Mine are mental, physical, and spiritual. Those are my three things that make up my identity. And therein lies everything that every goal I go after, any new pursuit I go after, I want to make sure they're in alignment to those. They're standards that that you don't waver. You know, you've heard the quote, the standard is the standard. Well, if you have standards, like I want to be a good person, I want to be movement, play with my kids, however you define it, right? That becomes your identity, not the thing that you're pursuing. So you can go after the CEO job and get it and be a success, or you can go after it and be a failure if you didn't meet your standards. If you sold part of your soul, I say we outsource our identity to other things. Like we all kind of live in a mask society, right? You go into one room, you put on one mask because, hey, they want Bobby to be this way. You go into, well, I'm not even saying that's bad because you have to relate to people, right? You have to communicate with different people. But at the core of it, is it you that's going through? Are you saying things or doing things that aren't you? Are you taking shortcuts and you're not a shortcut kind of person? Are you, unfortunately, a lot of people step on other people to get to where they want to go. If that's not who you are as a person, then your identity shifts. Yeah, I'm sure you've known and read that the brain is here to protect us. And if we say we're going to do something, or we say we think something and we do the opposite, it's going to make it that much more difficult for us to ever do it again. So like, let's just take a simple example. Like I'm going to eat salads for lunch for the next 7 days. And tomorrow comes along and you call me up. It's like, Bobby, let's go get a hamburger. And I go get a hamburger. Well, the next day, it's going to be very hard for me to go back and eat the salad, right? And that's the same with our identity. Like who we say we are, like go back and think of yourself at 10, 18, 28, whatever age you want. Are you that person today? Because you really are that person. Now, how many times have you heard someone who's in their 70s or 80s that says, I feel the same way as I did when I was whatever? Well, that's because you are the same person. And the sad thing to me, in my observations, is it's normally older people that say that. It's not people in our peer group or our age range that say that. But how cool would it be if you could say, I'm the same person today as I was 5 years ago? I might be better at it. I might have more stuff, but I'm still the same person. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think what comes to my mind as I heard you respond to it is there's a sense of congruency or honesty with yourself, right? Which is, I'm reminded of something one of my guests said. His name is Leon Thurston Jr. He said, you're the only person who's ever heard every lie you've ever told. That really stuck with me. You're the only person who's ever heard every lie you've ever told. I'm going to have that salad every day for 21 days or whatever, and then you eat the cheeseburger. Sure, no one else heard that lie, but you heard it. And because you lie to yourself, you're out of alignment. You're not being honest. You're not being true. And that's creating negative consequences for you more than anything else. And I also think, the outcome thing, Bobby, I want to get your take on this too, which is, we attach so heavily to these outcomes. We say, I need that in order to be happy. I need that promotion. I need the side gig to earn me this much money, or I need that relationship in order for me to be okay. And I think that when we have the attachment to these outcomes and things that are oftentimes not in our control, we're setting ourselves up for future discouragement. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. Like in my journey, I said I'd like myself if I got to 250. I get to 250, no change in myself at all. And I think a lot of that is because we put an ideal on the goal. We say, hey, I'm going to reach X and this is going to happen. But think about all the goals that you've achieved in your life. So rarely when you get to that goal, is it anything like you dreamed. And one of two things either happens. Either you set the next goal and you push and you don't take gratitude for all the things that you've done. Or two, you miss that you even met the goal. Like you got to where you said you wanted to get to, but it didn't feel right, smell right, taste right. So you're like, oh, I didn't do it. So you start telling yourself I'm a failure. Well, you're not a failure. You just weren't cognizant enough with yourself to realize that you had obtained it. It just looked a lot differently than what you thought it was. It's like chasing the horizon. You can chase the horizon for months on end. You'll never catch it. Why? Because it's always moving. Things change. If you say, hey, I'm going to do something in 5 years, well, think of all the changes in the world in 5 years. Think of all the changes in yourself. So that's where this whole and I'm a self-leadership guy. I really love the self-leadership theory when it comes to how we live our lives. And that simply states you can't lead yourself until you lead others. I've redefined it for myself, governing your inner world so that your external world demonstrates your whatever, your values, your goals, your aspirations. If you don't govern yourself, it really comes down to yourself. And I think we miss that so often because intrinsic motivation is what you do if no one's watching. Extrinsics are like the bonuses and the gifts and the awards, the accolades, parades, whatever. If that soon replaces you, because I'll never know what you're thinking about me. I'll never know what my neighbor's thinking about me. The only person I know is who I'm thinking about. And that's why when you said you're the only one that heard that lie, you have a constant conversation with yourself. If it's conscious or subconscious, your brain is always telling yourself information. So essentially you spend more time with yourself than you do any other human in the world. So you have to be true. You have to be honest to yourself, because if you're not, there is no path to success.
Yeah, and I can speak also from my own experience to relate to what you just said. I've been coaching people for years, whether I did it when I did it at Tesla, it was like, for a number of years. So, and then as a business owner, so it's over 10 years now of being a coach for people. And I can tell you, Bobby, the seasons when I was not aligned, meaning maybe I wasn't as consistent with my own physical fitness, my own mindfulness practices. I wasn't really living my best version of me. I wasn't as good a coach. I just wasn't. Like I knew it. Like I would be watching myself and I would see the results that I would be getting for my clients and the people I work with, and I'm feeling like something's missing. And then on the other side of it, when I was living my best life and I was aligned with the values and the way in which I want to live, physically taking care of myself, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, man, was I a much better coach. It's so true what you said. I felt it. I still feel it. And when I am right, then I am able to best serve the people who are looking at me to lead them.
Yeah. And time again, that proves true to me too. Because number one, if you're failing yourself, that's probably what you're thinking about. I missed this workout, or I missed this assignment or this call or whatever it is. And so when I'm with you, I'm not thinking about you. I'm not present to carry your burden, to help you along your path, to truly absorb. I had the most beautiful thing someone said to me the other day. They said, you listen to both the words and the heart. And I think if you're in a state that you're not leading yourself, I can hear your words all day, and I can go back to all the coaching manuals, all the training that you and I have been through, and just start asking questions. But where's the heart? Like, what's the person really saying? Are you married? I can't remember. Okay, yeah. So this happens all the time with my wife. My wife will say one thing to me, and I think that, she's like, I'm not feeling good. I was like, well, what can I do to fix it? Well, if I was truly present with myself, I'd sit back and think, well, yeah, life's been kind of crazy right now. The dogs are acting up, we got all these problems, pipes busting, whatever. Maybe instead of trying to fix her problem, maybe just like, all right, let's talk about it. Like, what do you need from me right now? Well, the only way I can give her that is if my cup is full. And if not, I don't think you're capable of listening to someone's heart if your heart's not right.
Yeah, because you're also in a state of having to focus on yourself more because of insecurity, right? You don't feel good about you. You can't be established in that kind of confidence to where I can just look at you with clear eyes. I don't project anything onto you. I am just this blank canvas waiting for you to paint something. And then from there, I can best respond versus being in a state of kind of adding layers to things because of my own inconsistency. And I'm curious to get your take on consistency, because I know you coach on this as a big part of what you help people with. I know Fareed's story, he's really struggling with this too. And I know that so many people, this is where they struggle. They'll get the motivation, Bobby. They'll start, they're inspired, and then they fall off. They do it for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, and then they go back into a cycle of, oh, I don't have the time. I fall into old patterns. What are your thoughts on how anyone can establish consistency when it comes to the activities that ensure that they are leading themselves well?
Yeah. Consistency is the key. Bottom line up front, boom. If you're not consistent, nothing's going to compound, right? So you have to do something time and time again. And you mentioned the word motivation. That's kind of a trigger word for me, because a motivation to me, I think, is the worst word that we use in coaching and life, because if you're waiting for motivation, it never comes at the right moment. Like, you listen to this podcast, maybe you're motivated, but you don't need motivation right now. You need inspiration. And you did say that too. So the key to getting consistency is to find out what you want to do. So a lot of people say, what is your why? I would say question your want to. Like, for my weight loss journey, I said I wanted to lose weight. Okay. In the early starts, it was like, oh man, this is a big number. I look terrible in my clothes. I thought it was a way to get better, but I didn't want it for the right reasons. So like, if in those times, if someone would have called me and said, hey, let's go do something, and I hadn't worked out that day, I wouldn't do it. One morning, it's 4 a.m. It's cold, it's sleeting, it's just miserable outside. I didn't want to go outside at all. I remember standing, looking in the mirror. This is very David Goggins, so I think I was probably programmed for this, but I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, why do you want to do this? It would be so easy right now to go back to bed or, put some warm clothes on or whatever. And I said for the first time to myself I want this because I think it's my path to happiness. I want to be a better person. I think physical wellness will help me overcome my mental unwellness. And it was then and only then that it was like a switch went off. I didn't miss workouts. That's where the consistency came. I didn't need motivation. It didn't matter if it was raining and cold at 4 a.m. and that's when I needed to get my workout in. I'd go out there and do it. And you know what? I changed my language. I took a notice that I used to say, oh, I have to get up tomorrow at 4 and run. And then it got to be, I get to get up tomorrow at 4 and run because I saw it in pursuit of my goal. People ask me all the time, you lose 180 pounds, people are always wanting you. Like, what's the key? You said it. It's consistency. It's showing up every single day and doing something, but you cannot do that if you don't know your why, you don't know your want to, and you're not fully committed to the change that you're going after.
Yeah. You got me curious when you used two words that so often people act as though they're synonyms, when you clearly think of them differently. There was motivation and then there's inspiration. You seem to define them differently. Break that down for me.
Yeah. So inspiration is kind of like the bigger vision. It's the goal. It's the thing that you think about when you have nothing left to think about. Yeah. And motivation, so think of inspiration as the full cup, and motivation is like the drip, that it's like an emotion. It comes, and if your cup's full, you're going to use it and go out. Because we all get motivated. I mean, sometimes you're motivated to go do something. I'm not saying it's not present in our lives. It's just the way we look at it. But if you're looking for motivation to lose weight or go change your career or take on the next goal, it's probably never going to come when you need it the most, because it's not consistent. Like, are you motivated every single day of your life, honestly?
No, absolutely not.
Right. In fact, most times, what do you say? You don't say, I'm motivated. I'm not motivated, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I hear people say.
I don't feel like doing it. Like, I don't feel like it. That comes up in my mind often, Bobby, and I go through a process similar to how you just broke it down, which is reminding myself of what it's really all for. And that's where I think the difference between motivation and inspiration comes in. How I often word it, and I bring this up in keynotes when I share a talk on how we work through change and chaos and uncertainty. I ask people to finish the sentence for me. I'm like, you are here right now in this room so you can, and then I say what? And some people say, learn, grow. And I say, okay, great. You want to learn and grow so you can. I have them keep going. And not usually, always, there's two things that really come up for them. One is something about their future self, right? To be the best version of me, to be happy, right? To be successful. And then the second one is so they can serve others and the effect they have on other people. And I find that to be beautiful because no matter what room I'm in, bankers, lawyers, meeting plan, it doesn't matter. They all say the same thing in the end, Bobby, which is this is about my future happiness, my future well-being, as well as the effect I have on other people.
No, man, that's great to hear that that's what you're getting in your feedback. Because I mean, it's very easy to say, oh, well, people are just doing it for their own glory or their own gain or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that should be inspiration enough. If you can help one person every day, and maybe that's how you set your goal at first, And another thing though that kind of like I'm going to throw caution to that. They say they want to learn so they can serve people. Well, what's stopping you from serving people right now? That's another limiting thing that we do that I think reduces our motivation. Where you are right now, you can make a change in someone's life or serve someone in the way that you anticipate right now. You can start. I mean, you're a coach, you do a lot of great speeches and this kind of thing. How many people come to you and say, I want to be a speaker, but I got to stop this job first, or I want to be a coach, but I got to stop this job, right?
All the time.
But what a great place. If you're in a job right now, you can learn to be a coach. You can listen. You can observe. You can start asking questions. You can become whatever you want to become right where you're at. I heard a great pastor one time say, flower where you're planted. And I love that so much because so often, it's that if this happens, then I can do this. Well, what's stopping you from serving? Maybe the serving that you want to do is not as grand, but like, let's say you want to give $1 million to a charity or $1,000 to a charity. Well, you don't have that. How about if you give $1 to someone right now? Someone in need, or you go by the Salvation Army thing at Christmas and drop $1 in the bucket. You can give right now. You can start building that discipline, that consistency, exactly where you're at right now. But that is super refreshing that you hear people want to do that. But I just want to say, listen, you don't need to know everything, because if you're waiting to know everything before you do whatever, you're never going to get there. I don't know about you, but every day I realize how little I know about anything. And I reassess and reevaluate every single time I talk to someone new like you or get these new ideas. Imagine if I stopped doing that. I wouldn't be on this podcast. I wouldn't do, the coaching that I do, the speaking that I do. All this stuff would never go on. And when you first started, you probably weren't good at it, right? Maybe
of course,
you were. Maybe you were.
No. I mean, look, I think with anything you do, it's like you said, the story you tell yourself. And if the story you tell yourself is you have to be perfect at it, or the situation needs to be perfect, you're going to wait forever. You're never going to get there. What I'm hearing all the time, Bobby, is people who are so tempted by things that are instantly gratifying. Fareed's story, right? He's kind of caught up in sports and fantasy baseball or fantasy football, right? It's just an example, and it's always based on a real person, by the way. So this is someone I actually did work with, and it's a cycle that so many people are caught in, where in those moments when a coach asks them, right? Yeah, they can create this big plan and they can feel really good about it. And then when their day-to-day comes in, and it's whether it's the phone or if it's a snack or whatever, instant gratification is a problem. Talk to me about how people can work through that very human attraction towards instant gratification.
Yeah, instant gratification is that dopamine hit that we all want and need. But I want to question people when they say it's the phone, snack, whatever scenarios you gave there. What are you avoiding? Like what? It's not the phone. It's not the snack. It's not really that. It's like what is out of alignment? What is out of congruence in your personal approach to life that's not giving you what you need? And I'm not saying that a phone or any of that stuff is necessarily bad. I mean, sure, that's all healthy to get escape from your work or whatever. But what pain are you avoiding by picking up that phone? It's like procrastination is like a big thing on people are talking about now. I don't believe procrastination isn't that you want to do the work or you're scared to do the work. Well, maybe you are scared to do the work. It's why is the pain that you're trying to change greater than the pain that you're in right now? And it's very easy to mask that pain. But then after a time, you eat too many snacks or you scroll on your phone. I don't know about you. Sometimes you get on your phone and you notice you spent 15 minutes and it's like you feel worse. So immediately, maybe you get that instant gratification like, oh, let's see what Jay's up to today or let's see what Bobby's up to today. But then after a while, it's like, man, I just wasted 15 minutes. And then it's hard to get back on track. So you find another instant gratification. Nothing in life worth pursuing is going to be done immediately. And that's the beauty of it. But only once you get past that mental block that I have to always be fulfilled. I always have to be like, do you remember when you were a kid? Were you ever bored?
Of course. Yeah, I would get bored.
Yeah. Don't you wish you could get bored again? Like there's so many things out here. We can't be bored. You're standing in line at the grocery store and what do you see? Everyone's on their phones.
Yeah.
Like, how about if we
I guess the strategy is get bored, everybody. Get right. No, I mean, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that jokingly. I'm saying seriously, like get bored. Because I'm with you. I do this with intention, Bobby. I do this all the time. I really look for moments to allow myself to be bored because I know the value of it. One that always I do. When I'm at a doctor's office, I refuse to look at my phone. If I'm waiting in that sitting room, that patient, when you're in the room to then get to the next room to then wait again, I'll sit in that room and I will just sit there. I will not look at my phone and I just let myself be bored because I know how healthy that is for my brain so that I'm not constantly being stimulated.
Yeah. And how much do you learn in those instances? Like the new thoughts that you come up with or, something you heard on a podcast or something you read earlier in the day, you get time to resonate with it. But a lot of times we're so scared because let's face it, we when we set goals, we don't know the path. I mean, there's some paths you do know, right? Like you want to get a degree, they give you a syllabus, they give you a course outline and pop, as long as I do these things, I'm going to succeed in this mission. But imagine if you want to start a new business, you're an entrepreneur or you want to go become a CEO, you don't really know what the path is. It's very scary. Well, those quiet times, those bored times, if you will, you can think about it. You can observe what someone else is doing. Watch, you watch people's behaviors all the time. Sit there and contemplate it. Jumping on your phone and seeing the best version of whatever that person is at that moment, or random searches, or the news. All these people say, "Oh, I need to watch the news to be informed." Well, look, I haven't watched the news since 2019. And I think I'm really informed because someone will tell me if it's important enough to them. I found because a lot of times they'll tell me stuff they think's important, and it's like, I don't even know what this is, or I don't care. But then two, you get to a point where you create your own world. You've heard if you want to make change yourself, change your neighborhood, then change the world. Well, now we go to the world first. We're like, oh, if I go to this rally or if I know this information or this kind of thing, letting yourself sit back and really contemplate where you're at. I think that's where a lot of the dissatisfaction in the world comes, especially in the case that we're talking about today is, you get caught up in baseball or fantasy baseball or whatever that person was looking at because it takes away the pain of whatever they're going through right this moment.
Yeah, it's a numbing. It's a numbing. Yeah. And that part about, an entrepreneur trying to figure out a business, anyone who's trying to gain clarity, how can you gain clarity when there's all that noise and all that stimulus? It's like I just imagine trying to look outside and there's just all this cloud cover and all this stuff that's blocking your ability to look out into the world. Like that's all the stimuli that we're constantly having to weed through. And I think there's I don't know what it is. You said it's dopamine. So it's like an addiction. I guess that's what it is, right? It's an addiction that people have to constant dopamine boosts or hits. And it's crazy because it's something people think will make them happy, but it actually doesn't. if anything, it makes them feel disconnected after all of that dopamine they get.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a comparison, right? I mean, anytime you look at what someone else is doing, it's a comparison, but we don't always have to do it just for like social media stuff too. Imagine information. I mean, how many clients come to you and they're overwhelmed with information? They've read 40 self-help books. Every time they turn around, especially now with AI and the massive amount of information you can get so quickly, and it tells you, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. I mean, you've got a podcast, I've got a podcast. You can find everything you're doing wrong with your podcast all the time. and you can go in these rabbit holes and improve SEO, improve this. But at the end of the day, the more you're spending time reading those, you're not becoming a better podcaster. If you're public speaking, Hugo would do it. If you read about being a public speaker all the time, but never spoke one time, you're masking what you really want to do. Yeah. Information is great. I love information. I love learning. But what are you going to do with that information? Are you going to have a library full in the back that gives you angst because you're looking for this one book and you can't find it because you have so many there? Or do you have the one book, the book you write for yourself, the story you write for yourself? And I think once you get that inspiration, that burning desire in you, and it's hard, man. I'm not saying this is easy at all because we're all distracted. I mean, I spent some time on my phone earlier today that I regret. So I'm preaching to the choir here. But imagine if I took that 10, 15 minutes and wrote or thought about this podcast or my next podcast or something else. Imagine what real fulfillment that would give me. Because later tonight, I might go to bed and be like, oh, I didn't do this. But yet I know I spent 15 minutes watching some memes, because my thing is like Creed memes, because we have a joke in our neighborhood about the band Creed, and sometimes I get on these Creed kicks. Like it's amazing how much is out there, and I don't want to introduce that to anyone. So if anyone else has this addiction, don't do it. But I say, oh, I'm going to send Jay a quick meme. Well, then 15 minutes later, I've watched a whole bunch of them. And I didn't do what I wanted to do. So I
get it. I mean, we all go down these rabbit holes. But what you said a moment ago about that burning desire, it made me think about my wife and I are just watching this show on Netflix. It's called Funny AF, and it's about stand-up comics, like real stand-up comics who are going through this competition and with the goal of getting a Netflix special. And what they show you is, how they prepare, and you can kind of get a sense of the commitment they have to this craft. And you hear these comedians talking about how they approach comedy and writing. And then you hear it's Kevin Hart, who's the host, and you hear him speaking to, Tom Segura and other comedians about how hard they had to work to be able to really make themselves or put themselves in a position to succeed in comedy. And what you said really resonated with me, which is they didn't just spend time studying comedians and reading about comedy. They got up on that stage and they failed over and over again. They bombed. They put themselves out there, Bobby. And that's what allowed for them to achieve. But it all started with a burning desire towards something that they really cared deeply about.
Yeah, I haven't seen that show, but I know Tom's story. I mean, he struggled for a long time in his Tom Segura on his journey, and it really turned out to kind of be like chance. Somebody called him up, I believe, to be on a stage, and the right person was in the room at the right time. And I think that's the point of all this. That's the point of consistency. It's like you've got to do something every single day. And you can't stop. If this is truly what you want to do, and that is who you are, your being, everything is aligned, you got to keep going. Because I often wonder how many people stopped one rep short, one speaking engagement short, one podcast short. What's the podcast ratio? Like, I think 3 is like, I think there's like a 50% drop at 3. And then the rest, I think after 20 episodes. Well, like, I don't know about you, but you go to episode number 1 of mine, it's like a hostage take video. It is terrible. But, and I was talking to a guy the other day about doing this, and he's like, I'm just so bad at it. And I'm like, but in a year from now, won't you be glad that you are bad at it right now? In 2 years, imagine just those repetitions day in, day in, day in, day in. And if you kind of can shift your mindset to think in terms like that, like I'm building for the future versus that instant gratification, because what do you really want? Maybe you really want to look at your phone and look at Creed memes all day. If that's what you want to do, be the best Creed meme looker upper in the world and get in contact with me and send them to me, because you'll save me a ton of time. But I don't think most people really want that. Most people want more for themselves, but they're too scared to steward their talents, their skills, their abilities to get to where they want to go. So we've got to eliminate that self-fear. We got to really go deep in within ourselves and say, this is what I want to do, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, and willing to be bored is such a big part of this. So you said it earlier, Bobby. I just wanted to highlight that because I think you summed it up so well. And that part about boredom is so important. It really is. Like, you got to do things that are uncomfortable, and you got to sit in the stew at times. You know, you just got to like push through it, because that's the stuff that no one does. Like, you have to do the thing that most people don't want to do to achieve that which most people don't achieve. And so I want to ask you, Bobby, if you were to meet the person in this story, Fareed, let's say he listens to your podcast and is inspired by what you shared, and he reaches out to you, tells you his story, what he's going through, what he's struggling with, and you listen, you acknowledge what he's dealing with, and you want to ask him a question or two to get him to start thinking differently. What would you ask him, Bobby, and why?
Yeah, I think the first question I would ask him is, what is the difference now from the time that you were doing all these things? You were doing the extra jobs, you were working out, you were doing, all these things, and then you just stopped. Like, why did you stop? Were you working for someone else? Did you not find that intrinsic motivation that kept you going, that inspiration that was yours? Were you doing all those things because that was what you thought was expected of you as a husband, as a father? And then I would want them to go back and look at that, and then look at where they are at now and start identifying those differences. Because a lot of times when we stop doing something and we gain weight, or we immediately just say we're lazy. Are we lazy, or are we just misaligned? And I think going back, I'm not a big fan of looking back other than identifying if that was your productive, because I think that's what he said, like he was productive in those periods. Why did you think you were productive, and what has changed? And a lot of times things change. Kids, maybe he had no kids back then. Now he has children. Like, that is a priority shift. And you're not going to be the same person. But a lot of times we burn the boats. As we talked about earlier, the person that wants to be a coach, they want to burn their job. They want to quit their job and go be a coach. Well, you got to adjust with the times. So that would be the first question. Does that kind of get to where you're just kind of identify the mindset between now and then? Because a lot of coaches would want to fix them, say, oh, you're broken. You need this 10-step plan. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. I want to know the why. I want to know what he is feeling at this moment, vice what he felt, 5 years ago, whenever he was quote unquote successful.
Yeah, and I love it, because what it's asking him to do is take inventory with real evidence from his past, right? It's something that he can actually say, well, I did do these things, and here's why I did them. Okay, great. Then what we have to figure out is a plan for you to tap into that more consistently, given your new situation, family dynamics, or whatever. Bobby, this was incredible, man. I'm going to invite everybody listening to learn more about Bobby. Go check out easyhard-versus-hardhard.com. That's the website where everyone can find more about your podcast, the book. And I know that you are really active on LinkedIn. Anyone can just search Dr. Bobby Shelton, and they will find your LinkedIn profile and all the content that you're posting there regularly. Bobby, this was excellent, man. I want to thank you for carving out time, sharing your story, sharing your wisdom. This was incredible.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed that conversation with Bobby, and I hope you enjoyed the new style of storytelling we did with the Meet Fareed story at the beginning. Some sound effects, different voices. The music was different. Send me an email. Let me know how you like it. My email is j@jaybossi.me. I always look forward to feedback, wanting to figure out how to best deliver this content for you in a way that's truly meaningful, entertaining, and where you get a lot from it. Speaking of which, Let me break down what I believe are 3 valuable takeaways from this conversation. The first one, question your want to, not your why. So often you hear people say, start with why, and there's value to that. Simon Sinek wrote a great book on it. His TED Talk's so well known. And sometimes there's more to it than just your why. What is it that you really want? What are you pursuing? Because that's really what drives you, is what you're going towards. And if that's not clear, and if you're not really passionate about it, you need to get clear. And that's going to be the driving force. Second takeaway, standards over outcomes. If you're identifying with an outcome, with a status, a promotion, whatever it is, a label, you're going to find discouragement. Because those things come and go, but your standards, hey, you set those. And if you can stay true to those standards and you show up every day at the standard that you believe will align with the outcome that you want, then you're going to be a lot happier and you're going to be a lot more resilient and consistent in your activity. Third takeaway, instant gratification is masking a pain that hasn't been addressed. When you reach for the phone, glass of wine, whatever it is, it's not about the phone. It's not about the wine. There's something you're avoiding and you need to address it. You can't keep pushing it down and suppressing it. You can't keep numbing because it's never going to go away. So meet those quote unquote demons, address them directly so that you can get through them and let them go. Join us on Friday's episode. I'm going to dive into a concept that I created. I'm calling it mind-freeness. You've heard of mindfulness. I've talked about mindfulness. It's so valuable. It's a game changer for me. It really helped me through so much adversity in my life. Also helped me to be more focused and productive. And I think there's more than mindfulness that we need to achieve at a high level. We need mind-freeness. And I'm going to explain that concept on Friday, how I've used mind-freeness in the past, and practical ways that you can use this to help you to achieve more, to be able to really optimize your potential and find creative solutions to problems so that you can get to where you want to go faster. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. I am rooting for you.